Welcome back to season 1. We're on episode 11 of the CyberVault. I'm absolutely thrilled to have Domingo Guerra here with us. Domingo is a cybersecurity investor and advisor. It would be great, Domingo, if you wouldn't mind maybe giving a little bit more of an overview on yourself.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So as you mentioned, I've been in cybersecurity for a while. I started my career on the engineering side, but in 2011, I went through something interesting in the workplace where we all used to have our BlackBerries issued to us. And 2008, 2009, 2010, we all started using mobile phones that weren't work issued, such as iPhones and Androids. So in 2011, I had the idea of saying, hey, if everyone's struggling with this, let's start a company that helps enterprise manage mobile risk. And that brought my journey into the cybersecurity space and more specifically into the startup space. So been in the space since then and really evolved from a engineer to a founder to an investor and advisor, large and small companies and everything in between.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the intro. And you're absolutely right. You've had a really exciting career within the space, and I think a pretty unique career as well. And I wanna kind of get back to that 2011 time because you kind of touched base on it a little bit there. But obviously, that's where you started to step into the world of startups, and you were, you had a pretty exciting product that you were bringing to market. So I'd be really interested to maybe start with what inspired you to take that leap? Because it's a bit daunting to do, a slightly new world, and obviously, I suppose it's one of those things people always want to do, but how do they know when it's time to do it? So yeah, what inspired you to take the leap, and I suppose how did you manage to take the leap?
So I grew up in Monterrey, Mexico, and there the heroes are either athletes, like football players or soccer, depending on where you're from, or entrepreneurs. And I was terrible at sports. So for me, it's like I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have my own company. I found it really exciting to not only define what problem you want to solve, but everything from how to solve it to the strategy on the technical side, on the go-to-market side, on the sales and execution side, etc. So for me, that was always a goal. I just didn't feel prepared. So I studied a technical degree. I was an engineer. I had some work experience. I tried to study as much about entrepreneurship as I could. And then I had an advisor that told me, you're never going to learn by reading a book or taking a class. Entrepreneurship is learned by doing it. So 2011, it was kind of right place, right time in terms of that big shift in the enterprise. And every time there's a shift, a new technology coming in, and this time it was mobile, it creates an amazing set of opportunities, especially in cybersecurity, because everything has to be written to protect it. So when we started Authority in 2011, I really thought it was more of a risk to not try it than to jump in and try to build a company. Because I figured if this doesn't work, I can always come back and get a job at a big company, like what I had done before. But if I don't take this leap now, when the market is ready and there's an exciting new technology, I'm always going to regret it. And I saw that as a bigger threat or a bigger risk for me in terms of regret of not trying. So jumping in was really exciting, really nerve wracking because you're also leaving all the benefits that you have, all the support systems that you have at a big company. If something breaks, there's someone from IT. You need to launch a product, there's a whole team. So now we had to learn how to do everything on our own. We were wearing many, many hats. So we had to be technical, we had to be sales focused, we had to be business oriented and everything at the same time. So there was a lot of learning to do. But for me, that was really exciting because every single day we were solving a new challenge. Nothing ever was boring. And for me, that was extremely exciting.
Yeah. No, for sure. I love what you say there as well because it's like it's a bigger risk to not kind of go in and take this startup because you can always go back to that safety blanket if you need to. And I suppose it's that element of, well, if you don't do it and someone else does, you're going to be there kicking yourself thinking, oh, well, that could have been me. And there's nothing worse than the what ifs. And obviously you built a successful company and it's like you mentioned, it's there's always that scrappy mentality when you're in a startup. You've got to wear the multiple hats, you've got to get stuck in, you've got to give it your all. And you managed to build that business to the point of being ready to sell it. And I think kind of that's a journey that can be really interesting to know kind of how did you know that that was the right decision to make, or what kind of brought you to that decision?
Yeah, Katie, that's a great question. And every single challenge, as I mentioned, is a new opportunity. It's a new discovery at these early stage startups. So every time you came into a new problem, you had to do a decision as how do we solve it? What's the best path forward? Many times it involved raising capital. So when we did our Series A round, that was really to grow from an early prototype and early traction to build out an enterprise sales force. And with Authority, we were helping the enterprise manage the risk of mobile apps and mobile devices. So we did a go-to-market that was direct sales. We eventually had partners and resellers. When we hit our Series B, our next big milestone is how do we make this international? How do we accelerate the growth? And up to that point, the path was always grow as much as we can, be the leader in mobile security. And we were recognized by Gartner and different third parties as the best. So it was like mission accomplished at each stage. But as you know, a lot of times product market fit changes. It's not a constant once you have it. So as the market continued to mature in 2017, 2018, large enterprises were saying, well, why am I buying mobile security from you, from App Authority, and endpoint security from someone else, and cloud security from someone else? And that push to consolidate became larger and larger. So we were stuck then at another fork in the road where we said, we'll either have to raise our Series C, a lot of money to go build out all these other security features that were not part of the initial product market fit, or we need to find a partner that has those pieces of the puzzle that don't have mobile. And that's always a very tough decision. But if you find the right partner, it's a perfect fit because then you're able to keep executing at that level that you are and not be distracted with building out new things that are not part of your core competency or your core focus. And that really was the case for us, where we had a lot of strategic investors, we had a lot of strategic partnerships, and a lot of companies that were going to make a good fit. And it was just now a challenge of finding the best fit. So 2018 was that transition for us. We ended up selling to Symantec, which at the time was the largest cybersecurity company out there, the largest publicly traded one. And it was a wonderful fit.
No, for sure. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? There's the cybersecurity market is ever evolving. I think most technology markets are. And it definitely started to, and it is continuing to move towards that more holistic, people don't want to be going to 100 different vendors for their products. And obviously really kind of a great decision. And naturally after that, you kind of have brought your experience into more of that angel investment, the advisory, helping provide direction, and I suppose kind of helping people that have maybe been on the journey that you've been on. And I'm curious to know what made you take the step to go down that route, and instead of maybe going and finding I don't know, your own new cybersecurity startup or wherever it may have been. What kind of took you to go down this route?
Yeah. So when we sold to Symantec, we had to stay at Symantec for a few years. And then Symantec itself was acquired by Broadcom. So there was a lot of change that we had to deal with from an integration, integrating the product, the team, the technology, and bringing those customers onto the new platform. But it also meant that I was going to be there for a while, and I didn't want to lose the pulse of the startup ecosystem. I had worked at big companies before, um, then started my own company, and for me, my heart was still working with startups. So I figured, what can I do to stay connected to the space? And also, how can I give back and help founders in a way that I wish I would have received help as well? So instead of having to solve every problem, like I mentioned earlier, as a brand new problem, once you've been through it, you become a lot more familiar with these. You've seen these before. So even if it looks a little bit different, you can add a lot of value. So I first started as an advisor. A few companies needed help in certain aspects, from product development to go to market to fundraising to M&A. And all of those areas I had experience with. So I was able to be very valuable to those founders and just founder to founder share advice, not sugarcoated, not like beat around the bush, but say, hey, this is a problem and this is how I've solved it before. A friend of mine compared it to playing video games, where each stage of the startup is like a different level of the game. And the second time, the third time, the fourth time you see it, you still have to go around the bad guy or whatever challenge in that level, but it's a lot easier because you've seen it before. Again, eventually you get to a level that you never played it. You'll get to a new stage and that becomes brand new again. But for those things that you have experience, it's one, way easier for you the second, third, fourth time. And two, it's then easier as an advisor to help folks that are going through that first time. So playing in two-player mode, two is easier than one.
Absolutely. And obviously, I mean, I think it's that thing when you've been there and you've been through those challenges. Of course, it's nice to be able to give somebody the reassurance of sometimes you just need someone to be like, it's okay. It's normal. It's totally normal what you're feeling or what you're going through. Or actually, here's a little bit of help. And I suppose there's also that element of most people are always focused around actually when you're going for series funding, there's often a lot of pressure then to be hitting really specific metrics and stuff. Whereas what you're doing there is more on that. I'm just here to benefit you. I'm here to help you grow. I'm here to kind of, make sure that maybe you're achieving these metrics. And it doesn't have that added extra pressure. And I suppose what could be really interesting to explore is you obviously you can't help every business out there. You can't, as much as that would be great to help every founder, you can only work with a handful to make sure that you can actually give them your time and your resources. So out of curiosity, what do you look for in a business to help identify who you want to work with and who it is that you want to support?
Yeah, that's a great point. There's You want to be able to be as helpful as possible, but that also means that you have to limit your time and commitments. Otherwise, you're not really available to provide that support. And that's both in my initial journey as a startup advisor and then in my evolution then to an angel investor or early stage investor. You can't participate in every opportunity. And I think it's back to that dilemma or that fork in the road where we had to find the right partner for an acquisition, for an exit. I think it's very similar there, where it's a team of founders that I want to work with. Life's too short to work with people you don't like. So that's kind of always my first uh, pass at it. Is would I drink a coffee with this founder and team? Would I drink a beer? Would I share some meals? Like if there's someone that you're excited to see, I think that's step one. Second is on the technology that they're building or the mission that they're trying to achieve. If it aligns, if it resonates with you, again, if I was a founder, would I want to build this company? If I was an employee, would I want to work in this company or work on this technology? And now with the investor hat, do I want to make this a reality? Am I passionate about this specific problem they're tackling as well? And then last is, can I actually help? I mean, there's a lot of founders that are great and they're working on an amazing thing, but it's something that I have either zero experience with or very little experience with, where maybe I'm not going to be the best person to help. And there I just try to make an introduction to someone that's better equipped for that. Or maybe it's an investment I can write a check, but not be very active in participating. But I think that sweet spot is where it's something that's interesting, someone nice to work with, and something that I can actually come in and help because I've lived through that before, or I've played that video game, to use that analogy again. I've played that before.
And I think it's a great analogy, and obviously, I think it's really important. I always talk about one thing that's super powerful, and I mention this all the time is that networking piece. It's being, I suppose, a person that is approachable in the market that you want to help as well. And I think sometimes it's easy to forget that there's people out there that obviously want to help, but you kind of have to be at least a half decent person for people to kind of want to commit their time and invest in you. And I think it's often a really critical part of being a founder as well. And because reputation is arguably everything. When as big of a world of cybersecurity that it is, it's small. It's everybody kind of is it that was it few degrees of separation everybody talks about is very much very much plays into the world of cyber. And I think just to add on to this point a little bit more, because obviously startups define all sorts of stages. You've got kind of, your pre-seed, your seed, your series A all the way through. And ultimately, until you're getting to that kind of, whether you're selling the exit, post IPO, whatever it might be, you almost classed as a startup. And I think at what point in that startup journey, would you say it's actually most valuable to maybe leverage someone like yourself? Kind of, why would people want to kind of go, okay, this is a point where I could do with somebody like Domingo to help here? Because I think sometimes it can be hard to ask for that help and hard to recognize maybe at what point it is that you go, this is where I need this additional resource and guidance.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one misconception that I had as a first time founder is that things would get easier when we name anything, when we raise more money, when we have more sales, when we have a bigger team. The reality is that it never became easy. And that's why it's such a difficult career and path to be a founder. But it's also very rewarding because you can either try to do it yourself or lean on a team or others to help you get there faster. So I think from an advice perspective, there's always going to be an opportunity for it. That said, if you're very late or if you're later stage, you will have a team. And now it's also, you have resources to hire the best and to hire people at every role that have not only done this, that they have won and excelled at this. So that part, maybe you need less of that advice from an advisor later on. But early on, when you and the founding team and those early employees are wearing so many different hats, I think it's when it makes the most sense because then you're able to say, hey, how should I focus my time as a founder if I have to wear all these hats? Where can I get help from someone trusted that has been a founder as well, that knows and cares about this company as much or almost as much as I do? I think that's when it makes the best help or the best fit. And also, these advisors can help you then make those early hiring decisions to do a better job and have a team that's much stronger. A lot of the focus is also shortening the gap between initial funding and the next round of funding. And someone that has raised those funds before knows the checklist and knows what investors are going to be looking for. So yes, you want to be building, you want to be growing, but you want to be hitting the milestones and the metrics that the next funding round is going to look at, because that's how you stay in the business, that's how you stay capitalized, and that's how you avoid getting into trouble by running out of money or by finding a difficult time fundraising in the future. Is when you're not ready, it's very evident that you're not ready, and then it can become extra stressful and something that's already difficult to begin with.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I think it's good to get that insight because, like I mentioned, sometimes it's recognizing, okay, at what point do we bring someone in? And I think when a business is like, it's like your baby in a sense, isn't it? You're building it from the ground, and it can be hard to open that door and say, look, I could do with a bit of help here, but arguably it's the value add is undeniable, and absolutely worthwhile kind of bringing in. You don't want to be going through it alone. um, and I think kind of, we've covered some really interesting topics here, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier on, but you know, touching base on the fact that technology is continuously transforming. There is always a new hot topic, there's always a new trend. Cybersecurity, fortunately, and also, I suppose, unfortunately, has to continuously evolve because with new technology comes new vulnerabilities, and naturally more opportunities, but equally, I suppose it creates businesses that kind of cat and mouse chase of constantly going in the circle of, oh no, now we need to update our products to not become a legacy. Um, and I'd be really interested to hear your perspective because right now, obviously, you've got a bit more of a holistic view of businesses that I suppose are going for funding, businesses that are looking for this kind of support, that are kind of looking to go to the next stage and really go to market. What I suppose are your predictions for maybe some of the leading vendors that could be coming forward, or where maybe the most investment's going to be over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I'm really excited actually about this topic because, as you mentioned, every single new disruption in the industry, every new technology creates a whole new set of category leaders. This industry is evergreen in that there's always going to be new things to address and new threats to address, but also it creates massive opportunities for founders, for investors, for everyone in the ecosystem. And just as a quick example, like obviously I talked about my company when the mobile transformation happened in the workplace. And then after that, there was data on every device, every endpoint. So data security category exploded in growth, and then everything connected to the cloud, and cloud security became also a totally massive category. And right now we're in that AI age where every company has to figure out what's their AI strategy, whether they build it into their products or they buy it from someone else. But that's going to create another set of disruptions. And then we can already see kind of quantum threats coming a little bit in the future, right? So there's always going to be new innovation. And that means new opportunities to build amazing companies and amazing technologies. So I think from that perspective, it's something that folks are really excited about. But as you mentioned, the flip side is that there's also a lot of worry and concern around it. So I think one, it forces us to stay on the innovation side. We can never rest and say, hey, we're done. Because like you mentioned, that cat and mouse game, when we solve a problem, the adversaries, the attackers, find a different one to exploit. At the same time, the attack surface is still growing. There's more and more devices, there's more and more data. And now there's agents and AI creating even more data and attack surface. So I guess that's also increasing the threats. And attackers are figuring out how to use these new technologies as well. So I think from that perspective is embracing the opportunity, but also realizing that there's a huge responsibility that we have to keep building and keep pushing the envelope from a security perspective, and keep on top of the new threats and hopefully ahead of them as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's undoubtedly a very exciting vertical to be in, and I always think it's really funny that we always concentrate on what we obviously see in the market, the technologies that are coming forward that I suppose you call it the good guys are creating, because obviously they're selling that. But what you forget is, well, actually the bad guys getting access to that technology just as quickly, if not quicker, and it's constantly trying to keep up with those trends. Um, but no, I mean, Domingo, I think kind of, so much insight there. And I think like I mentioned, you've been on an incredible journey and being able to have a really great, I suppose, perspective as to kind of where the market is. And I think to close off, what I'd really love to do is see, maybe if there's a piece of advice that as somebody who has been a founder, has gone through a sell, has obviously been doing angel investment and advisory work. If you could kind of say to somebody who's listened to the episode today and has been able to resonate with anything, one piece of advice that you think would just be a key takeaway that if you back in 2011 could have received, what would it be?
I'm going to cheat and I'm going to say two of them. But one is
That's
like,
fine.
yeah, one is to dream bigger, because a lot of times you see the initial problem and you're so laser focused on that problem that you might miss the next stage of that or the next evolution of that. We talked about how fast it's changing, but a lot of these products that start like a feature or a nice solution is how do we make it a must have, right? What is the next bigger thing there? And I think so dreaming bigger and having a bigger forward looking vision is part of it. And the second, to tie it back to our conversation, is to get help. There's really a lot of options, from just straight up advisors and pure mentorship and sharing what your struggles are with other founders, even if it's in an unofficial way. Just talking about the challenges gets you new perspectives and new ideas of how to solve them. And two, if you are going to get some investment, rather than just a check, try to work with someone that can also add some value. Because at the end of the day, there's more dollars and there's more money out there than advice. I think pairing that with someone that can be excited to help you and that you're excited to work with them is going to make a huge difference. I think over my career as a founder and then in the startups that I worked in as well, it's not always the biggest check that provides the most value, right? So a check, you'll forget about the money later, but you'll never forget the folks that helped you along the way and rolled up their sleeves and were there in the trenches with you day in and day out. So that would be the advice that I'd like to close with.
Fantastic and more valuable advice to be taking away. Well, I thank you very much for your time, Domingo. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Like I say, some really great things that we've covered there, and I think so much to take away, especially for any kind of, anybody looking to start a business or is maybe kind of on that journey already. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, Katie. It was a great conversation.